you're going to see the Trump defense play video of Maxine Waters telling crowds to mob Trump administration in restaurants and attack them. They'll probably show clips of Cory Booker saying, "Get up in their face" of these Congress people. You'll probably see comments from Representative Omar wishing and celebrating the violence that happened to me when I had 6 ribs broken and part of my lung removed. I think you're going to see all of this, and people have to judge for themselves. Are we going to impeach and potentially criminally prosecute people for political speech when they say, "Get up and fight for your country, let your voices be heard"? Has nobody in this country heard figurative speech? You can argue that his position was wrong and that it was misguided. I accept all of that. But if you're going to criminalize his speech, you have to do it with the same standard. You can't just criminalize Republican speech and ignore all the Democrats who have incited violence. Look at the mayor of Seattle. She went on and on about this being a summer of love. Kamala Harris went forward and said, we should bail out these violent protesters. One of them has gotten out 3 times, committed crimes 3 times, including cracking the skull, fracturing the skull, and causing a brain injury after Kamala Harris advocated for getting him out of prison. So the thing is we can't just have a double standard. Both parties have to be treated the same. Okay. I think Democrats had any bit of self-reflection, they would be saying this is a really terrible idea.
In Washington, is that incitement? Should that be sanctioned?
There is no comparison. This was an effort to overturn an election, in and of itself, an unconstitutional endeavor. This was a crowd of tens of thousands of people. The president had access to intelligence to tell him that there were individuals there who were intending to storm the Capitol. And then once again, while the attack was happening, the president had the ability to turn them around, and he didn't. The circumstances are completely different. The president's responsibility is completely different, especially as the actual attack was happening.
Was for promoting them. The next litmus test will come at President Trump's impeachment trial this week. All 50 Senate Democrats are almost certain to take what is a politically safe vote for them to convict. What will Republicans do? House Republicans voted by a huge margin to keep Liz Cheney as the number 3 in her party. But that was a secret ballot. Senate Republicans won't have that luxury. What would they do if they did? And what will they do when their voters are watching?
The party is his. It doesn't belong to anybody else.
Republicans grappling with the party's identity face another test this week as the Senate hears arguments in Donald Trump's second impeachment trial.
The resolution is adopted.
On Thursday, just 11 House Republicans voted to strip Georgia's Marjorie Taylor Greene of her committee assignments after she endorsed violence against top Democrats, called school shootings a hoax, and 9/11 a conspiracy theory.
Q is a patriot. We know that for sure. It's odd there's never any evidence shown for a plane in the Pentagon.
Greene said she regrets those comments, but pointed fingers.
Will we allow the media that is just as guilty as QAnon of presenting truth and lies to divide us?
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, who condemned QAnon months ago,
there is no place for QAnon in the Republican Party,
claimed this week he does not know what it is.
Denouncing QAnon, I don't know if I say it right, I don't even know what it is.
Meanwhile, 61 House Republicans voted in a secret ballot to strip Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who supported impeachment, of her leadership post. In the Senate, many Republicans had made it clear they support Cheney and that Greene does not belong in Congress.
Is she a good face for the Republican Party? She's not.
Republican leader Mitch McConnell, quote, "Loony lies and conspiracy theories are cancer for the Republican Party and our country." North Carolina's Tom Tillis tweeted, "It's not conservative, it's insane." But Republican senators have to decide how willing they are to challenge the half of the party that calls themselves Trump Republicans. The answer from some, not very.
This is about I believe, is a psychological obsession with the president. They can't just let it go.
Only 5 Senate Republicans voted against an effort to dismiss the trial. Among them, Nebraska's Ben Sass, who is facing possible censure by his state party.
You are welcome to censure me again, but let's be clear about why this is happening. It's because I still believe, as you used to, that politics isn't about the weird worship of one dude.
House impeachment managers will argue.
The office is saying that because of the $900 billion that was on a bipartisan basis negotiated, there'll be 3.8% GDP growth in 2021. Now, when you have 3.8% GDP growth, which is like more than we've had for quite some time, coming out of a pandemic, you've done something right. And so I actually think that we got it pretty good.
Your proposal, by the way, you were one of the senators that has been fighting hard to get aid to state and local governments, one of the few Republicans that have joined some Democrats. This counter proposal of yours did not include state aid, and you have said, look, it is hard for you to get, my guess is you couldn't get 10 Republicans to join you if you did. If that is the issue, how do you come to a bill where you know you have the Democrats on the side of state and local aid here?
You got to look at facts. Now, the reason I said it would be difficult is that some states have done better in 2020 than they did in 2019. California has had record tax revenue. Now, my state's been hurt. Let's just say it. But New York, for all of their complaining, Governor Cuomo's complaining, has only had a 1.5% decrease in revenue. New Jersey, 0.5%. And nationwide, I think it's like 0.1% revenue decline nationwide. Now, it's hard to build political consensus when there's only 0.1% revenue decline. If good policy is good politics, then maybe bad policy is bad politics. And if we're going to throw $350 billion at states when New York has had record increased revenue, some folks are going to scratch their head and says that's not justified. Let's think of a different way to do it.
Are you still willing to work with the Biden White House if this deal ends up being on a party line vote? Will this make it harder for you to work with them, or you know what, you'll be there for the next one?
You actually have two different questions in that. I am absolutely willing to work with anyone if it's good for the American people, because that's what we should all be about. We have conservative solutions. The more conservative values infuse public policy, I think the better public policy is. On the other hand, the administration is showing very clearly they don't care if they have to work with us. They're willing to push things through, even if someone like Larry Summers, a former Democratic Treasury Secretary, says it's boneheaded policy. I'm paraphrasing. And even if we come in good faith with at least 10 and more that would have joined us, and they say they don't care. So you've got that. It takes two to tango. Right now, I'm not sure we have the two to tango.
Well, I think that has been a challenge.
You have a long list you can work within your own.
You worried about the precedent that has been set here? I had a former aide to a Republican speaker say to me, Democrats are going to, if they start this precedent, my side will show no mercy the next time they have power.
No, look, Kevin McCarthy stands for nothing except the perpetuation of his own position. He has no values, and in my view, cares about little except for hoping to be speaker one day, God forbid. But look, if members of either party are threatening violence against other members of the party, of the body, and suggesting they be executed, if they are casting doubt on 9/11 or school shootings, if they're heckling victims of crime, like Marjorie Taylor Greene did with the victim of the Parkland shooting, if they're suggesting that a religious group is shooting laser beams to start forest fires, they should be expelled from their committees, whatever party they are in. They shouldn't, frankly, even be in the Congress.
You're not worried about the precedent?
No, as long as we hold the same standard. You have members that are threatening to execute each other, and they should be removed from their committees.
Seems like a reasonable standard. Adam Schiff, Democrat from Southern California, chair of the Intelligence Committee, and you're rumored to potentially have a new job. We'll find out in the coming days whether that happens or not. Congressman, thanks very much.
Many of them were witnesses to the violence and the threats and victims of the vandalism. The article of impeachment alleges former President Trump incited the insurrection. 5 people died during and after the chaos, and lawmakers, including senators, had to be evacuated that day. The Senate is expected to acquit the former president, since 17 Republicans would have to join every Democrat to convict him. The Democrats say they hope to win at least some Republican votes by linking Trump's words and actions to vivid descriptions of of the violence.
Lawyers for the former president call the trial unconstitutional because he is now a private citizen. They say the trial will be, quote, political theater, arguing the former president did not incite violence when he told his supporters to, quote, fight like hell in a rally on the National Mall just hours before they marched to the Capitol. Tomorrow's trial is expected to begin with a debate over whether the trial itself is even constitutional.
Agree to a structure that will ensure a fair and honest Senate impeachment trial of the former president. Each side will have ample time to make their arguments.
House managers will have 16 hours to make their case, and then the former president's defense will get 16 hours as well. As of tonight, there's no agreement over whether witnesses will be called to testify, but that could change as the trial goes on. We are learning the Georgia for federal payments of up to $3,600 per child for qualifying families. The White House says this proposal is in line with a Biden campaign promise to reduce child poverty. Democrats only have a narrow majority in both the House and Senate. Besides Republican opposition, Democrats will have to consider moderates in their own party who worry about a relief deal that goes too far. Here in Georgia, our 7-day average positivity rate has dropped below 12% for the first time in over 2 months. Current hospitalizations have also dropped to about 3,400. Some grim news, though. Over the weekend, state health officials reported our deadliest day during the pandemic. 179 people died on Saturday.
Everything they can possibly do as a facility.
And finally tonight, a familiar face to many is not throwing away her shot.
And if I got sick, I'm not going to get sick unto death, as the old folks would say.
Channel 2's very own Monica Pearson is on with us tonight with how she made it through shot number 2. You're watching WSB Tonight.
Her brother and her mother are also residents. She's making phone calls. She keeps running into the same problems. So tonight we are determined to get them answers.
You've made countless phone calls, sent countless emails. You're not getting anywhere. How do you put your frustrations into words?
Iva Thalen says she's at her wit's end, and who can blame her? Because for the last 3 weeks, she's been calling and emailing countless health officials, trying to find out why the residents and employees of Hollander Senior Living of Sandy Springs are still waiting to get their first doses of the vaccine. Thalen told me on Monday that her mother and brother were among the 47 residents and 18 employees scheduled to get them through Walgreens last month, but that never happened because of a last-minute cancellation by the pharmacy.
They deserve that. They've waited patiently and have done everything possible to make sure that they're protected, but we need that next step.
Since that cancellation, the Assisted Living Center's executive director has been attempting to reschedule the appointments.
I reached out to multiple drugstores around the area. None of them have it. I reached out to the CDC. I reached out to Fulton County Health Department. And no one really seems to know what's going on right now.
Shaw says what makes things even worse is that her company's sister property in Monroe hasn't had any issues with getting their facility vaccinated. She told me she feels awful for the families of her residents.
And they're asking me, why is my mom or my dad not being vaccinated? And I just don't have an answer. And that's very frustrating to them, and it's very frustrating to me as well.
We reached out to the Fulton County Board of Health, but a spokeswoman told me that they're working to get to the bottom of the situation.
At this point, the next rollout is going to come for other people to be getting vaccines, and we're going to continue with this problem.
Thalen says she's trying her best to stay in close contact with her loved ones, but without the vaccine, she won't be able to see them.
They are extremely stressed out. It's, to take someone and put them in lockdown, they need touch. They need, companionship.
Channel 2. Those are proposals from Georgia's Republican Party tonight. The GOP also wants to allow videotaping of all election activity except voting, and also get rid of those unmanned ballot drop boxes.
Next, the FBI says they are using every tool possible to make sure the Capitol in Washington, D.C. stays safe during former President Trump's impeachment trial. It starts tomorrow. They've beefed up security and will be very strict about who can enter the Senate chambers.
A daycare worker charged with the death of a 4-month-old could be a tough case to convict.
That's what a legal expert is telling us tonight. Dunwoody police say Amanda Hickey left the boy unattended on his stomach for hours. She is charged with felony murder. Channel 2's Matt Johnson live with us tonight on this story. Matt, you're at the DeKalb County Jail because Hickey was in court.
Shame on you, Nabisco, for putting so many people out of work.